Cool. Hi, friends. Welcome back again to the newest episode of GrowthFit series interview. So today we have a very renowned guest, Steven. Steven is the co-founder of this brand called, Xero Shoes. Okay, if you see, there's a story behind that thing. Okay, how Steven and his wife Lena started this company after discovering the comfort, benefits, and fun of the natural movement by getting out of the thick padded motion controlled shoes, right? So by running a small DIY, like it's like do it yourself DIY, sandal kit to a global D2C brand, right? So there is a lot to learn from Steven today. So let's dig into a detail, okay, how step by step he built this brand and what kind of strategies he used, okay, to increase the engagement rate on his website and ultimately, the sales what he's able to achieve today, right? So yeah, stay tuned. We'll definitely go deeper and try to get those sort of insights which will likely help you guys in your company when you're running it out, right? And also these tactics what we are going to get out from the Steven, right? So definitely I'm sure, okay, we'll all be using in our growth strategies. Okay? Welcome, Steven.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Stuart. So let's start with the fundamental thing, right? So I just want to understand like what sparked this idea, for Zero Shoes, and also just I wanted to understand like basically I understood that okay, it started with a DIY sandal kit, right? So
Yeah.
from there, how it turned into one of the great D2C brands in the shoe category.
So the whole thing was a giant accident in many ways. And those are my favorite kind of stories. It wasn't well planned, but once we realized what we had, we took it.
Mm-hmm.
So about 18 years ago, I had
Mm-hmm.
gotten back into sprinting after a 30-year break, and I spent the next 2 years getting injured nonstop. And
Okay.
a friend of mine who's a world champion runner suggested that I get out of my very thick padded shoes and
Uh-huh.
run barefoot and see if I learned something. Well, what I learned is that I had
Uh-huh.
a problem with my running form that I couldn't feel through all that padding. And
Okay.
when you're running barefoot, good form feels good and bad
Uh-huh.
form hurts. And so that first barefoot run hurt pretty
Uh-huh.
badly. I ended up
Okay.
with a big blister on the ball of my left foot, in fact. So a week later, I decided to try a run again. I still had this hole on the ball of my foot, but I was thinking if I can find a way to run that doesn't hurt, then I'm
Uh-huh.
probably not doing the thing that caused the giant gaping hole. So basically, I just paid attention to my form. What I really did is I paid attention to the good side,
Uh-huh.
and after about 9 minutes, the bad side figured out what to do differently. And instantly, my running form got better, lighter, easier, faster, more enjoyable. And then over the next couple of weeks, my injuries went away. I
Uh-huh.
became much faster. So, cutting ahead, for the last 16 years, for men in my age group, I've been one of the fastest men in America. But the more important part is that was such a profound experience of going barefoot. And now I have to back up. So I'm a sprinter. I run the 100 meters, or indoors, I run the 60 meters. But
Okay.
when I was doing that barefoot run, it was so interesting to me to
Uh-huh.
experiment with my gait, to see what happens if I move my legs faster but don't run faster, or move my
Mhm.
legs slower but don't run slower, or run faster but moving my legs at the same speed, or run slower moving I mean, whatever it was. It was just
Uh-huh.
so interesting that I ended up running for a little over 5 kilometers, which I had
Oh,
never done in my life. And I was like,
okay.
okay, there's something to this barefoot thing. And so I wanted that experience as much as I could get it. But my wife got tired of me coming into our house with white carpeting and my dirty feet. And restaurants would get mad if I tried to come in with bare feet, even though it is legal.
Good.
But anyway, so I made a pair of sandals based on a 10,000-year-old design idea. I mean, footwear is simple: something to protect your foot, something to hold it on your foot.
Correct.
That's it.
Correct. Correct.
So I made this pair of sandals, and
Uh-huh.
then I made some for some other people, and then they told other people, and they told other people. I ended up making, I don't know, 50 pairs of sandals. I hadn't made any money doing it. Every time I'd sell a pair, it was to make sure I could just buy enough material to make another 2 pairs. So I kept doing that.
Okay.
And then one day, a guy says to me that he has a book coming out about barefoot running, and if I had a website for my little sandal making hobby, then he would
Uh-huh.
put me in the book. Okay,
Oh,
so we have to
great
back up.
market.
So we
Uh-huh.
need to back up a little bit. So I've been an internet marketer since 1993.
Okay.
I built hundreds of websites. So
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
came home, I pitched this opportunity to my wife, and she told me it was a very bad waste of time idea, wouldn't make any money. We had actually started a search engine marketing business, and she said it was just a
Uh-huh.
distraction. from that. She
Uh-huh.
insisted that I not build a website, and I told her that I wouldn't. And
Uh-huh.
then she went to bed, and I built a website.
Okay.
So
Which year is this?
this is 2009.
Okay. Okay.
So that's how it started. And
Uh-huh.
the simple answer to the question, I mean, we'll dive into this, but the simple answer to the question of how we went from selling a do-it-yourself sandal making kit, basically some sheets of rubber, some string, some instructions on how to make a design that people have been doing since the beginning of people,
Mm-hmm.
is that once we started offering these to people and they responded and said these things are changing their life, because
Got it.
getting out of a big thick shoe that elevates your heel and squeezes your toes. I mean, I'm sorry I'm not in my office to show you an example, but I'm sure, I mean, if you look at any modern shoe, they squeeze your
Uh-huh.
toes together, they have too much cushioning, they elevate your heel.
Correct. Correct. Exactly. Exactly. Even there are this spring size sort of the thing, virtual spring.
Yeah.
Right. True. True.
Yeah. So people were saying that just by getting out of those and into
Mm-hmm.
something that was natural, basically it being as close to having bare feet as possible, again, layer of protection, something to hold it on. That's it. We realized that we were onto something significant. And people would say, I love this do-it-yourself kit, but I don't really want to make it myself. So I came
Got
up
it.
with a way of doing a ready-to-wear version. And they'd say,
Uh-huh.
well, I like that, but what am I going to do when it's winter, or if I
Uh-huh.
have to go to work, I can't wear sandals. So eventually we made a pair of casual shoes. They said, oh, that's
Okay.
great, but I'm also a runner. So then we
Uh,
made running shoes. And basically by listening to our customers for the last 15 years, we've grown from a sandal making kit to over 60 different styles of casual and performance shoes, boots, and sandals for pretty much everything you do.
Great, great. I mean, basically, there's a lot of the journey to it, right? So how you learned, unlearned, and all, right? So and also, you appeared on the Shark Tank thing, right? So that's been a dream for many founders, okay, in
Yeah.
this space, right? So what impact that episode brought on your brand's growth and the visibility thing?
So we appeared on the show in January of 2013. So the business was about 2.5 years old. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not even quite that. I mean, we started the end of 2009, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, like 3 years old. But I mean, we actually taped it in July of 2012. So when we were a little over 2 years old.
Okay.
And sorry.
No, yes, I said
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, listening. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So it was very early on. Again, at that time, all we had was the do-it-yourself kit.
Mm-hmm.
So what it did is a couple things. In terms of revenue, we brought in about 3 months worth of revenue in the week following the show.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
what's fun is that what was then 3 weeks of revenue is now what we do in about a day and a half. So it's very, very different. But so the revenue part was very helpful.
Uh-huh.
The other part that was very helpful was just preparing to be on the show. It made us really commit to the business. I mean, when we started the business, we thought it would be a nice little lifestyle business, would make enough money for a car payment or a house payment. But realizing from hearing from our customers who were
Uh-huh.
saying, this is changing my life,
Oh, nice.
we realized, okay, this is serious and we have to take it seriously. So that the preparation for the show was very helpful. The
Mm-hmm.
complaints and the criticism that we got from the Sharks was
But
also very helpful because it
correct.
told us, where we should go next, really, and what we needed to do next. And last but not least, obviously, it put us in front of about 7, 8 million people. And hearing from them saying, oh my God, I didn't know about this whole barefoot running idea. I never read
Uh-huh.
the book Born to Run. That is what really catalyzed that idea. But I love what you're doing. I hate shoes. I like being barefoot. I didn't know what I could do. And this is people of all different types, young people, old people, men, women, I mean, athletes, everything. And
Got it.
so all of that really made us realize that we had to fully commit to moving this business forward. And last but not least,
Uh-huh.
they keep airing reruns of the episode in the last 12 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so every time they do, not like we get a big bump in sales,
Yep.
but people become aware of us again. I mean,
Mm.
it's hard to get a big bump in sales because we're already such a much bigger company.
Correct.
But it's also just given us credibility. When we talk to potential investors, they watch that show and they see how we did on the show, and they're
Got it.
getting a sense of who we are in a high pressure situation, independent of us just having a conversation where clearly I'm trying to sell them on our story.
Got
They're
it.
seeing it where people are arguing about the story and we still prevail. Now, if people don't know, first of all, you can watch the episode if you go to xeroshoes.com/Shark Tank. But
Uh-huh.
we turned down a $400,000 offer.
Uh-huh. True,
And
true. I see. Uh-huh.
it was the best thing we could have done. But when people see that we turned down $400,000, that also gives them an idea of who we are. That is very
Exactly,
helpful.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, really. So that kind of the, the leverage what it adds to the story, and okay, that kind of the journey, right? That's what okay makes more uniqueness, because okay,
Correct.
the one which aired at 2012 and 2025, still actually there is a constant follower viewers. Okay, seeing the thing, people are getting inspired, right?
Well,
So
also like CNBC and a couple other places, there have been a whole bunch of like blog posts and videos about the biggest things that the sharks were wrong about,
this,
and we're always, listed in that because we're one of the most successful companies who've been on Shark Tank, even though we didn't take a deal.
correct, correct. Yeah, true to the true sense, right? So, want to understand, Steven, in your case, right? So, what like when you started, okay, what kind of the marketing channels, okay, you guys looked at when during early days of Zero Shoes,
Yeah.
and can also help us understand, because you are from the hardcore, website, SEO background sort of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So, what are those primary things which you try to fix, when it comes to the driving the traffic onto the website?
So back in
And
2009,
sure.
keep in mind there wasn't really social media. I mean, there was
Ah,
very, very little of anything like
true,
that. But the fundamental idea is find out where the people are who are your potential audience and get in the way. So
Mhm,
engage yourself in the conversations they're having. You don't have to sell. You just
mhm.
need to be present and be helpful. Offer something valuable. So at the time, there was it was a Google group that
Mhm.
was talking about this whole barefoot running idea.
Got it. Okay,
And,
okay.
and I would get involved in those conversations and offer the information that I had from what I learned from going
Okay.
from running in regular shoes to running barefoot or in our sandals. And just
Got
in
it.
my signature file
Uh-huh.
was, information about the company. And partly what we were offering people, because we had a do-it-yourself kit,
Mhm.
was instead of you having to go figure out where to get all the components, you could buy them from us for basically less money than it would take than if you tried to
Mhm.
do it on your own. So that was the
Got it.
first thing I did. The
Uh-huh.
second thing I did is, at the time, YouTube was only one of about 25 different video channels.
Correct.
So I made a lot of videos. I mean, first of all, I made videos that were how to make our do-it-yourself kit.
Got it.
And I
Correct.
made
That's a fundamental. Huh.
very important. So
Correct.
I made a bunch of videos and I syndicated them on all of these 25 different sites.
Mhm.
And also my background is search engine optimization. So I also was creating other kinds of content to maximize our presence on the search engine. So between the video and our website and the other content, for a while, from the end of 2009 to pretty much the end of 2010, for any keyword that I really cared about, we
Mhm.
had at least 30, if not 40, of the top 50 search results.
Got
So
it.
it was impossible to miss us.
Got it.
And
Uh,
that was what I did originally.
so what kind of the keywords, like what you
Easy.
guys are
Barefoot
targeting?
running, barefoot shoes, Born to Run, because that was the name of the book that made all this, that made people aware of this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The names of some people who were well known in that world. Um, what else was the relevant ones? So yeah, barefoot running, barefoot shoes, do-it-yourself sandals, make your own sandals. I mean, the whole thing with keywords is, on the one hand, just think of everything that you're doing, and the
Uh-huh.
other is think of all the ways that people are talking about you, all the questions they're asking. I mean, I wasn't trying to do longer tail things. So short tail, like barefoot running, barefoot shoes. Longer, make your own barefoot shoes, or how do I make shoes that let me run barefoot, whatever. I didn't have to do that long tail stuff,
Correct. Okay.
because that's easy. The other thing to think about when it comes to keywords is when people are looking for information versus
Mhm.
when they're looking to buy. If they're looking for info, what kind of things would you search for if you're looking for information? If you're looking to buy, what kind of things are they typing in if they have more buying intent? And
Mhm.
you want to do both of those.
Understood. Understood. Yeah, and that's a good set of the info, right? So whenever actually we try
Sorry,
to.
wait, I got to interrupt. My apologies.
Yeah, please wait. Uh-huh.
So there's one other thing.
Uh-huh.
So for example, another thing you want to do to stand out in the search engines, if it can work, there's times where it does, times where it's a little less valuable, is you want to stand out. So
Uh-huh.
rather than just talking about how great you are, you can
Correct.
do things about, so instead of saying, barefoot shoes are good for you, or even
Mhm.
are barefoot shoes good for you, you can do an opposite of that. Are barefoot shoes bad for you? Will running in
Okay,
barefoot shoes hurt you?
that's very
So,
nice.
again, what are the questions people are asking? They're not asking to prove that you're good. They're asking to
Correct.
find out if you're completely full of it. They're looking to find out if you're a scam. So
Mm-hmm.
like, is barefoot running a scam? I think I probably did that one. So,
Oh,
literally just, you have to imagine yourself, and this is a very difficult for many people. You have to
mm,
imagine yourself being someone who doesn't know who you are, who
correct,
just heard a little bit about this idea. They're skeptical. They're either skeptical or they're committed and do both
correct,
of
correct.
those.
Makes sense to me. This is a great tip. I'm even actually going and writing a separate note on specific this information what you provided, right? So that's a
Good.
this is really helpful. Like basically, we all think about okay, telling how good we are, right?
Yeah.
For example, even in our case also, right? We said, hey, CustomFit is the easiest, A/B testing platform all over there. CustomFit is a one of the like deeper personalization platform and all, right? So some of the things even actually so that's what actually we do. Okay, every even after these episodes and all, right, every Monday we meet as a team and we discuss okay what we learned as a custom fit, okay, from the guest whom we interviewed, right?
Yeah.
First of all, we need to have our own run book, okay, then only okay our viewers can also go through that thing, right?
Well,
So that's
I'll,
the
I'll, I'll riff on that a little bit.
uh,
If I'm looking to hire not a chiropractor, a copywriter. I don't know why I
uh,
said chiropractor. If I'm looking to hire a copywriter, I'll say to them, okay, I want you to create some examples of headlines to use for a Google ad, for an AdWords ad. I'll give you the first one, and then you have to give me four more. And I'll say the first one is, these are the greatest shoes I've ever worn. Now, in the next four, if they don't come back with something like, do not wear these shoes or else, or my wife said she'd leave me if I wear these, or something that's completely counterintuitive, that's not
yeah.
about how great we are, but something that's going to catch people's attention, because again, it's addressing some fun way of handling an
Mhm.
objection or an obstacle or a question people are asking, then I can't hire them. If all they want to do is talk about how good we are, or even talk about the problem that we're solving, or how great you'll feel after the problem is solved, that's easy. Everyone's doing that. You've got to
Yeah.
find a way to, you know, it,
Going through the
yeah,
lines, yeah.
something different. If someone says this is the best practices, do the opposite of that.
Correct. Makes sense, Steven. This is a really great input, right? So another thing in the same line, right now you did all these, various ways to drive the attention or catch the attention, get them onto
Yeah,
the page and all, right? Now, if you see, what I notice is there are different section of audience, right? It can be based on your age group, or it can be, like
or an
maybe a
interest
kid
or an interest that you
enthusiast
have.
versus the beginner sort of the thing and all, right?
Yeah.
So, how like once you get them onto the website, how did you make any efforts to personalize or okay
Back
customize
No,
picking
no,
based
no.
on
I mean, back
things?
then there was no way to do that, frankly.
Uh,
Or doing it was very complicated. There was a couple things you could do. There were ways back then where if you're running a particular ad, you could use UTM code at the end, and then
correct.
based on that, you could change some of the copy. But it was very challenging. And frankly, at the very beginning, especially with what we were doing, which is something novel, something really brand new, kind
Mhm,
of, even though there are like demographic differences, men
mhm.
versus women, different ages, different interest
Yes.
groups, different
Uh,
income, they were all pretty much the same. Early adopters, they're all pretty much the same.
mhm,
They're
mhm,
intrigued by this idea. They want to know more. Or maybe they've already, like if they read the book Born to Run, they were already a
mhm.
little pre-sold and just looking for a way to get in. So there was
Got
really no need, because the group, when it's an early adopter group, they're all fundamentally thinking the same things, trying to accomplish the same things. It's literally only now,
it.
16
Mhm,
years later, where we have so many different products for so many different kinds of people, who some are looking to improve their health in some ways. Some are looking to just maximize their performance. Some are just looking for something comfortable. So there's so many different ways now. I mean, this is a conversation I've had in the last 48 hours with how we want to get people to self-identify so that we can give them a more personalized experience. I have to say again, I've been involved in the internet since the beginning of the internet.
true,
And
true.
and at the very beginning, the conversation was, how do we talk one to one to people?
Correct. Correct.
Someone's going to come to the website. How do we talk to them as if it's just a conversation? That's still a conversation. 16 years later, it will never be solved. You'll never have that perfect one to one thing. And I will
Correct.
tell you,
Correct.
do you know the term the uncanny valley?
Yes, yes, I had it so.
Okay,
Right.
so for people who don't, so the uncanny valley is like here's what humans do on this side of the valley,
Value.
and
Correct.
here's what the computer can do.
Other thing. Yeah.
And the fantasy is the computer will get good enough that people will think the computer is a person. But there's that valley in the middle, that gap in the middle where little things make people go, oh, that's a computer. And they get mad
Okay.
when they think you're trying to fool them. So right now, a lot of the personalization, if you get more than broad strokes, this is my opinion, if you get more than broad strokes based on something they have explicitly told you, then you're running into an uncanny valley problem.
Correct.
It's kind of
Correct.
like, look, we all know this. You get an email from someone and it's personalized, but your name is in all lowercase. You go,
Exactly. No, that's what actually. For example, what we also say to our customers, right? When they ask us, hey, can we put the name over there on the website when they get onto the thing? Can we put this?
you,
See,
you
they,
can, but what
yeah,
if you get,
so,
but if you get it
that's
wrong, that person's out.
no, wrong is one thing, and second thing is like what, like as my experience, okay, building this platform for more than 6 years, it's all about a best personalized page is a page which even visitor no not aware that it is personalized for him. It's just
Right,
like
right,
implicit, right?
right.
So that's the thing. What actually we say, it should be as if, okay, there is, he should not think that it is something, okay, kind of tracked and built for him or her,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Yeah,
the
it's kind of like for anyone who's been geo-targeted, where you've been somewhere and someone is tracking your phone and they know where you've been and they know the store you walked into, and 12 hours later you get an email
yeah,
or you see an ad for that store. It's just invasive.
correct,
So
totally,
now,
exactly.
I mean, there's a funny version of this. So there's a way of doing, at least in the United States, doing retargeting by postcard. So,
Uh-huh.
and you can do it anonymously too. So if you come to my website, you don't log in, you don't give me your email address, you do nothing. Um, I can basically find a physical address for 40% of the people who just show up at my website. And then I can, through a number of services, send a
Uh-huh.
postcard to them.
Got it.
Now, the interesting thing there is the people's psychology, especially if you do the postcard correctly, and it'll show up like 3 to 4 days later, is they're going to get the postcard and go, oh my God, I was just at that website. Now I'm getting their national advertising campaign. They don't make the direct connection because the time difference and the difference in the medium to go from the
Correct.
internet to mail seems crazy. Now,
Correct.
when people realize that 40% of the time someone can find your physical address and mail you, they will lose their mind and this idea of postcard retargeting will disappear. And I know the people who own a couple of the companies, and I've told them that, and they're very well aware they are walking on thin ice, as they say.
Right, right. No, no, that's true. That's true.
But no,
Right.
you're right. You want the personalization not to feel invasive. It's like if
Correct.
someone comes to the website and I show a pop up and ask them, and say, I'm just curious, where are you in the journey about barefoot shoes? I know nothing about it. I'm hip to it, but I'm not sure. I'm looking at a bunch of brands. I just want to buy one of your shoes, or I think you're completely full of it, and I want to prove that you're wrong. If they click one of those, then
Mhm.
have the copy show up in a way that's relevant, but it doesn't feel invasive because they just told you, and you don't have to say, well, since you selected, it's like, no, you just write the content as if it would have been what they saw anyway.
Exactly, exactly. No, no, that's true. That's true. Right? It has to be in that way only, because otherwise it's like a kind of a, even like, there's a kind of, scary also, okay, even you say all these things and what it's not projecting over there, right? Right. So,
You know,
and another thing, okay, see, in the same line right now, say that you got the people on the website, right? So how are you going to build that? How are you building the trust factor? Like, say, no, I came onto your website for very first time. I saw your
yeah,
ad, great. Or I read the book, great, right? So can you help our audience, like what are the fundamental things which you followed, very first thing to build that trust factor, how you move the needle to make them do a first buy?
it depends. There are a couple different ways that come to mind. One is if your website looks highly professional and
Mm-hmm.
that's appropriate for your product, that's one
Mm-hmm.
way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Another is the exact opposite, is it looks like it's real people behind it and they're
Uh-huh.
relating to people. That can be helpful. There are things, I'll give you a sneaky one actually. Um, and this goes back to personalization. So we have a little tool that we use. Many people have seen this, is pretty common. you'll be on the website and a little pop-up will appear saying, so and so just purchased this product.
Purchase a product. Okay.
So
Like so many people looking at this product.
yeah. So the sneaky thing to do is if you can, again, there's ways of doing it where you can identify where someone is living or where they're at least, logging on. And if you do something like so and so and it's the same city that they're in, just purchased it, it's a very weird thing, but we have an instant rapport. It's kind of like if you meet someone and they went to the same school that you went to, you feel instantly connected to them, even if you have nothing in common with them.
Correct.
So the natural thing is you meet someone, you find out you have something in common and you feel connected. The way to fake that, and that's what the internet is all about really, is faking natural, is finding some way of seeming like that happened. It's subtle. It's not going to, turn you from 1 sale a day to 100 sales a day, but it is a subtle little thing. So being personal is another thing. Another thing in the trust factor is, of course, getting testimonials, getting testimonials and reviews even more, because they know the testimonials can be someone saying something good. It's like whenever there's a website and I'm trying to look at and find out information that has testimonials, I skip over them. I don't care because I know they're all going to be like, oh my God, it's amazing. Actually, I'll say it this way. The one thing I look at when I'm looking at a testimonial is, and this is for me as a marketer, if I'm looking at some marketing technology, I want to see if the testimonials are from companies that are the same size of mine or bigger.
Okay.
Or if they're the same kind of business model. Like if it's a bunch of testimonials from people who are just selling internet marketing programs, I don't care. If it's a bunch of testimonials from people selling a simple problem or a simple problem solution idea, I don't care. If they're selling services, I don't care. If they're an e-commerce store where it's like a bunch of different brands, I don't care. So I'm looking to see if there's anything close to my business model that I care about. And then I'm just, because that's all I'm looking for. If I find that, I don't care what they say, because of course they're going to say it's great. So there's that. But also getting, having people if there are people who are well known in the space that you're doing, having testimonials from them is very, very helpful. Anytime you can name drop someone famous, that can be helpful. But the biggest thing is, another thing is, how do I want to put this? There are a lot of sites where they make it very difficult to find out who's running the site, why they're doing it, what their connection is to the product. You want to make that visible too. So for us, what made it helpful to build trust was I had made all these videos. People had clicked and invited me into their world. And so that's helpful as well. And we made all the information about what we were doing very present. I am a customer. That's why I started the company. That's very helpful. I mean, I'll say this in a way that I don't like, but it is true. The fact that I'm a successful runner who at 63 looks like this, ignore the hair, because some people don't like the hair, but fundamentally I'm a very fit guy. That's very helpful. So, if you have
yourself a role model for your company, right? You're an icon for your company.
It wasn't, I got to tell you, it was not my plan. When I started the company, I literally thought, I don't want to be the face of the brand, because if we're going to sell this thing, I don't want people to think I have to come along for the ride. But what happened is that I made these couple of videos where literally it was like 5 seconds of my face. Hey, I'm Steven from Xero Shoes. Here's how you make, a do-it-yourself sandal making kit. And then it's 10 minutes on my feet. But after doing this, people were recognizing me on the street. And I know as a marketer, people relate to people well. So, and I also know that we wanted our whole company to have a personal connection with our customers. So I leaned into this idea of, I'll be the face of the brand. And also, I mean, parts of doing that are really fun for me, I'll confess. But it was a conscious decision, in part because it made sense for who the brand was. And it made sense because I was already getting the feedback of the value of it. I mean, I've been involved with a writer who was trying to basically stay invisible, but it became very clear that her story was so important that we had to lead with the story. And she was also a beautiful woman. And so you put those two things together and it's like, no, you can't be invisible. You are the story. Now, in my case, I'm not the story per se, because the people who are interested in this whole barefoot running thing at first were mostly long distance runners. I'm not a long distance runner, but I still have credibility because I'm actually also good. I have very good understanding of biomechanics, running form, running technique. So again, I'm one of the leading experts in the world in this whole topic. And so that's
Uh-huh.
another thing that helps build trust is I create a lot of content now where it
Mhm.
just demonstrates. I don't do it in order to demonstrate it. It just so happens I am that person. And so the content that I create is communicating. I know what I'm talking about.
Got it, got it. And even I will tell you, okay, some of our customers, right, in this sense, like for example, there is this brand which is one of the unicorn out of India thing. So, what they do, especially for the people coming onto their very, website for very first time, right, the first time visitors, their PDP pages, the, product page starts with the bang of testimony. Like, look, 1,500 customers given 4.5 star
Yeah,
rating.
yeah, yeah.
Nice messaging, right? That can also change based on the region, based on the campaigns what they are running and all those things, right? Like basically the moment I hit that thing, it's not showing me, it's not like 10 or 20 reviews. 1,300 plus customers given 4.5 star. Something has to be there, on that product. So they
So
will
our yeah,
to
so
go.
ours is something like 81,000 5-star reviews. The that does help, but those are kind of the classic ones.
Some of the, right.
So yeah, I mean they help, but you have to be careful with them because you don't know if someone's going to that website and they see 1,850 people if they think
Uh-huh.
that's a lot or a little. If they think it's a
Mhm.
little, it doesn't help. If they think it's a lot, it does. So you kind of have to be aware of that one. There's
They will
other
do that.
things that are helpful. I mean, those are referred to as like, trust indicators or trust seals, and those can be helpful. But I'll give you an example of where it can be not helpful. And this one's still on our website on a few pages, and I'm trying to get rid of it.
Mhm.
Um, so sometimes if you're telling people trust me, like,
Mhm.
in America they have a thing called the Better Business Bureau. It's, Better Business Bureau A+.
Okay.
Sometimes they're thinking, well, why do you need to tell me that?
Got it.
What are you trying to prove? So
Mhm.
some of these things can work. I guess the real message here is because some of these things could work or not work, you want to test them. You want to split test them and find out if they're helpful. And you want to redo that split test as your business evolves because it may change at some point where something that used to be helpful is not anymore, or vice versa.
Makes sense, makes sense. Also, I will tell you one other thing which I observed, okay, with my customers also, right? For example, okay, there is something trend called as a negative, no, it's a positive, negative review sort of the thing. For example, people when the customers comes from the website, right? Very first thing before looking at your 5 star reviews, they will go and check what are the 1 or 2 star
Oh
reviews,
yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely. So two things
Uh,
about that.
uh,
A, you better have 1-star and 2-star reviews because otherwise they
correct.
think you're lying. Now, I mean, we had this problem early on. We had like nothing but 4 and 5-star reviews, and people thought we were lying. And
Got it.
so you need to have them. The second thing is you need to respond to every one of them. You need to
Mm-hmm.
have a reply that's acknowledging their situation, that is, saying that you want to be helpful. I mean, whatever it is that's an authentic reply, you need to do that too.
Got it, got it.
Just
Yeah,
get
same
people.
thing. And also on top of the thing, what actually, there is a trend called as, what do you say? It's a negative positive reviews,
Yeah.
right? Like for example, say that okay, there is one person writing in, a 1 star rating, telling that hey, this shoe I'm using since last 3 years, it's not giving me a chance to buy a new shoe,
Yeah.
right? So it's a kind of okay that says that okay, okay, fine, okay, this shoe is very sturdy, it's there for ages and all, but still actually there is a negative review, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of the trend what I have seen these days, wherein okay, there are these sort of reviews just let over there so that people, it's like negatively positive sort of the thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we
So
we 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 have we get a bunch of those. We get some, especially around the time we're launching new products. Like, I'm very upset now. I have to buy more. So
true, true, true. Right. So, and yeah, and another thing is okay. One, like like any sort of the when you launched any of these product, right? Obviously, there are so many ways you had to do the price level A/B testing to come up with the right fixture and all, right? So, like in some information to our viewers, like how you kind of come up with that right fit price, like you did some of the A/B test over there, or it's a kind of
no,
a.
there's not a good way of split testing pricing for footwear. There's not a good way of split testing pricing at all anymore because of so much conversation on social media. Before social
Mhm.
media, you could split test pricing because people weren't talking about it. It's like, wait, I got that for $10 less. And then you get a lot of
Got
angry phone calls. In fact, when we used to do that, not for this company, but in a previous company, if someone called and said, wait, I thought I saw a better price, like, oh yeah, we're testing pricing. I'll give you the better price. And they're like, oh, great.
it.
So that's a good thing. We do it we do a lot of research to see what similar products are being sold at, and we also know what we have to sell at in order to be profitable, and we also kind of experiment a little bit. So this is one of those things like hiring, where everyone has a fantasy there's some perfect way of doing it, and there's just not.
Right, right, right. True, true. And also, I noticed that you guys are selling to almost 97 countries, right? It's not a small, feast, right? Like any of the logic, say some of the biggest, logistic operational challenges did you encountered? Okay, how you're able to get past that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in those 97 countries, some of them are being serviced by distributors, so we're not responsible for it. Some we have a European office, and so we're dealing with all the European countries, which is very challenging.
Mhm.
And then we have, but the biggest thing I'll say is the decision many people have to make is, do I run my own warehouse and multiple warehouses possibly, or do I outsource this and use a third party logistics company, 3PL? We in the U.S. we have our own warehouse. In other places we have a 3PL because we're just not in a position to. We don't have enough resources to have a warehouse that we manage there. We've not had great experiences with 3PLs, even some of the ones we're currently using, and or at least ones that we're working with them. But doing it on our own has given us a lot of benefit. It's also harder to do because you're having to manage it instead of working with someone else. But for our business, it's been very important to do it on our own, and everyone's going to have to make that decision for themselves. We did it on our own. Then we went to a 3PL. That company went out of business. We moved to
Mhm.
another 3PL. They couldn't handle our volume of just like one at a time, so we had to leave there. And we brought it back in house. It's again, there's not a perfect answer for that one either. It varies on the type of product, the volume that you're doing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of variables. So I wish I had a simple answer, but there just isn't one.
Understood. Still, actually, it's a entire complex thing. All right. So yeah.
A lot of
Anyways, like one other thing, like basically, there are so many different channels. Okay, through which people are discovering you currently, right? So
it.
any guidance which you follow to ensure there is a brand, commonality, consistency, once it's the
Yeah.
hit.
Well, we're not in a bunch of places that I want to be in, and I'm trying to rectify that. Um, this goes back to the first thing I was saying. It's like find out where people are talking about you or about what you're doing and get involved in the conversation. And so that's the number one thing. But you also have to be very attentive to the cost for doing it and the benefit for doing it. So
Got
if
it.
something, I mean, in the early days, this is not quite the same, but in the early days, we couldn't do any paid advertising. We were selling a $25, $30 product, and
Mm-hmm.
big shoe companies were bidding up the cost of advertising, and there was just no way we could have been profitable doing it. So, and there's certain platforms where they might be very engaging, but what's the word I'm looking for? The back end advertising structure, the thing that supports I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Um, but maybe their advertising platform is not as robust as others. And so
Got it.
you won't be able to tell how well you're doing. So that's a dangerous situation to be in. Or if you're talking about like TikTok, creating all the content that's really TikTok friendly can be
Mm-hmm.
time consuming and expensive, and it's hard to track to see if it's
Mm-hmm.
working really well, especially if people are going to TikTok and then they're going somewhere else, then they're coming to you, then they're like, I mean, it gets very complicated in ways that it didn't used to be. So I guess what I'm really saying is for anything you're doing,
Uh-huh.
be clear about how much money you could lose if it totally doesn't work, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
assume that it won't work, and then be
Got it.
very clear about what it's going to take to prove that it can work, and monitor that like it's the most important thing in the world, and get out as soon as you find out if it's not working. There's something that we're doing on our website now that I predicted wouldn't work, and other people disagreed with me, and it's not working. And I'm going, we have the proof it's not working. Shut it down.
Uh-huh. Got it. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to be in that way. At least you can during initial phase, right, where time is money. Okay, money is money, sort of the phase.
Time, I like time is money. Money is money. I like that.
Right. So yeah, and any sort of the tools which you used, okay, that help you from your early days till now, like the market tool, basically the martech tools. I mean, like that help
Yeah.
you.
I've never,
Your favorite tools till now.
they've never worked well for me and the way my brain works. So no. And because a lot of the MarTech tools are based on the idea you're going to find something that works and then just replicate that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you just keep replicating it, then you're going to be boring, and that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's important to have some way of tracking to see what things are doing there. And now that's, harder and harder. One guy that I've worked with gave me a great piece of advice. He said, if you just use Google Analytics, which is only basically tracking the last thing that people did before they bought,
Mm-hmm.
if you can make things work according to Google Analytics, then things are probably working much better because it's only giving you a little bit of information, not a lot of information. But it also could mean that you're wasting money on a whole lot of things before that last event. So it's hard to know, but you can use Google Analytics directionally. If I'm spending more money here, what happens to my sales? If I'm spending less money
Correct.
here, what happens to my sales? But fundamentally, if you can find someone who really understands Google Analytics and works well with your media buyers, you can get a, you can get a decent idea
Uh-huh.
about what's happening, but not a perfect one. There are some newer tools that some people find helpful. The ones that I've heard of that we're not using, Northbeam, Triple Whale, Hyros, Hyros. The
Mm-hmm.
ones that my very smart friends are using are things like RedTrack, Ike, EYK, and Blot Out. And so people are trying to figure out in a post iOS 14 cookieless
Uh-huh.
world, what can we do to get good data? And some of those are doing, they're each doing it very differently, but some of those can be helpful. But this is, again, very dependent on your company and who you have available, who knows how to actually dive into the data. It's really easy to get fooled by looking at the numbers without understanding what's driving the numbers or looking at the different ways of looking at the numbers. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why there are people who get paid as data analysts.
very the advice by your friend, right? It's very interesting one. It also made me think in a lot of ways. Okay, even actually for the to like GA thing, okay, what he meant to say, right? That's interesting. Finally, one last question, Steve. Let's for example say that if one advice you want to give your younger self, right? Say for example, okay,
I can't
starting.
do it. I can't do it. Actually, here's what I often say. The
Uh-huh.
advice that I would give to myself when I was 20 years old was get a government job with a pension instead of becoming an entrepreneur. But I would have never listened to my own advice, so it doesn't work. I don't think back to what I could have or should have done differently because everything I did was based on it was the best decision I could make based on an infinite number of factors, my own
Correct.
psychology, my own what's going on in the world, the resources I had available to me, and everything else. I can't think of a way. I don't bother trying to think of how it could have been different because it doesn't help me today,
Mm.
and it's probably just a fantasy anyway. Here's the funny way of saying that. The question that you ask, what advice would you give yourself? The key word is advice, with the implication being, if you could do something different, it would have ended up positive.
Uh-huh.
It would have been different in a good way. It might have been different in a bad way, even if you had made a better
Yeah,
decision.
correct, correct.
So, because I can see an infinite number of possibilities from any given moment, I just don't even bother.
Mhm. That's nice. Any one advice to the young entrepreneurs who are starting their B2C brand?
Yes, I actually do have one piece of advice, and I kind of hinted at it. The thing that I say to people who want my money is, what's the fastest, cheapest way I can find out if you have your head up your butt? And I do say it like that. In other words, all I care about is finding out if something works or doesn't work as quickly and cheaply as possible. So if you're starting something out, find the fastest, cheapest way to find out if people that you do not know will pay for what you're doing. So in the old days, if you were doing direct response advertising, you'd write a full page ad with a place where people would have to clip out a coupon and mail you a check. And people would run the ads before they even made the product just to see if people responded. And if people
Got
responded, they'd quickly make the product, or they'd return the money and then make the product. And if people
got
didn't
it.
respond, they might try another ad or two, but you can do that now with AdWords. You can build a website very easily and quickly where it does
Correct,
everything but take people's money, and then
correct,
run a couple of ads and see if people get all the way to the checkout page.
correct.
So there's lots of ways of testing. Entrepreneurs in general overcommit to their idea because we love our babies,
Exactly,
but most of
exactly.
our babies are ugly and stupid. I mean, really, the number of things that I
That's true.
started that
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
work.
True, true, true. No, in our case also, custom fit was not a day one thing. Like we came through a lot of pivots and all. Now it started running. Okay, when we found that niche, targeting the D2C brands and all. Okay, across the platforms,
Yeah,
right?
that's another
So
thing. You might find that your original idea is good, but not this way, this way.
correct, exactly, exactly, exactly. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
cool.
Cool, but Steven, really, thankful to you.
Pleasure.
Lot of inputs, and we gone. I guess okay, we gone very deeper with respect to each questions. There is, definitely a good set of the ideas. Okay, this thing our viewers can take from. And thanks for your contribution.
My
To this.
pleasure. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.